Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Brie Rhiannon, and this is my limited podcast series on the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And it looks like we did just catch my little Pisces cat, Lilo, coming. I don't think she's going to be in frame based on where she's going to sit, but today we are talking about Pisces. And I didn't get it on the recording that she was announcing herself as soon as I was about to start with a lot of meowing. So my Pisces is right here with me today. So here we are. This is I guess the last episode, if you're listening to things in order, in which I am talking about the construction of the zodiac wheel and helping you learn astrology through the lens of polarity by building it by axis instead of learning it just one sign at a time and like one house at a time all the way through. But Pisces is the 12th house, the 12th sign of the zodiac. It is the culmination of all the signs of the zodiac, all in one energy. So it's also the highest frequency sign and energy. And of course, it is the sign and house of spirituality more than anything. But plugging my outfit first because what is she wearing today? Because like I said, I'm going to be going over the building blocks foundationally of astrology to learn things easier and better so it doesn't feel so daunting and difficult. But I am dressed in theme for each sign of the zodiac. And if any of my girlies happen to be familiar with the brand of Selkie, this is an old dress that I wore for a photo shoot like years and years and years ago. I only wore it the one time and was always like, when am I ever going to get a chance to wear a full-blown ball gown ever again? That is really clouds is the pattern here, so I don't move my hair a little bit out of the way. And this is my dreamy fairy tale princess fantasy Pisces dress for today, because that is the representation pretty much to a T of exactly what Pisces even rules. But what we're really going to be going over are the foundational building blocks of how you can construct your memory and your pattern recognition and all of those things when it comes to the rulerships on each sign and house of the zodiac wheel, and doing them in a certain order as well to show you that when you learn one, it kind of helps you graduate to the other, and that things really just make sense when you stack things on top of each other like that. So really what I'm going to go over is, the sign comes first. What sign are you in? Then you learn the house and what does the house represent? And then after that, you stack the planet. What are the planetary rulerships? So for Pisces, we actually have two. There are certain signs of the zodiac where we have ancient astrology rulerships before we invented telescopes and found our outer planets that now represent the modern astrology rulerships. And so Pisces is one of those signs. So we will go over that today as well. And then you stack the element on top of that. Pisces is a water sign. So again, the blue of my dress is also evoking that watery element of Piscean energy today. And then after that, you stack the mode. And the mode can help decrease your anxiety on remembering all of that because it's the same throughout the entire axis. And we've been learning that the entire time. And then very lastly, we take a look at the symbol because astrology is really a symbolic language. It's learning how to read a symbolic language in a system of knowledge that is told through symbolism and also imagery. So if we forget everything else that we learned on all of the other building blocks that I have mentioned that we are stacking in particular orders, then we look at the symbol and we see where that imagery and symbolism takes us in our mind, and we then can connect all of our dots back to all of those foundational building blocks of rulerships that I have mentioned. So let's get into it. Pisces, we gotta love Pisces, right? Pisces, like I said, it is fantasy, dreams, also delusion, but that word has a little bit of a negative connotation to it. So let's also talk about the Pisces rulership of delusion and how we can view that in a more positive light. I think we're seeing a lot more of this coming through society and culture, and especially manifestation and manifesting culture, that you kind of have to be a little bit delusional in order to manifest. And also, when we're looking around us and the world is really, really difficult for us to look at, that's a very Pisces theme and a very Pisces nature, because Pisces just wants everything to be beautiful and wonderful and fantasy and fairy tale. And so maybe we all need to be a little bit delulu for the Salulu, right? That's a big phrase and catchphrase that we are all saying these days is delulu is the Salulu. That is Pisces. We've had transits very, very recently, the last 14 years, actually. Neptune has been in Pisces. We just came out of that energy. So it's actually very appropriate, because Neptune, once we get to the planetary rulerships, is the modern ruling planet of Pisces. And so during that 14 years, and we developed like our internet culture and these fun little catchphrases that we come up with, and meme culture and everything associated with that, coming up with Delulu is the Salulu happened during the 14 years of Neptune being in Pisces. So that's super, super fun. Pisces is dreamy. Pisces is, like I said, I'm dressed like a princess today, so it's also fairy tales. It's a very, very creative energy. It can be associated with like writers, a lot of very talented, brilliant writers throughout history and currently even right now, and even friends of mine who are they write the most beautiful poetry and prose. They have massive, prominent Pisces placements. Some of them have Pisces stelliums. So it is the sign associated with writing, because that is imagination. So it also is the zodiac sign of imagination as well. But at its crux and at its root and at its core, Pisces is the sign of spirituality, the spiritual journey, your soul, and your spiritual truth as well. So when you look at it as the culmination of the entire zodiac, and it's literally the energy of every single sign that came before it. When we're learning the zodiac is really the story of life, the story of existence. We're here in the human reality, so it's also the story of the human experience, but then that there's always this feeling that there is something more. And so when we get to the very end of the zodiac wheel and we end up in Pisces, it's like we're kind of collecting, like I imagine like a bag that you start collecting, and it's like, oh, I'm putting Aries in here, I got Taurus in here, I got Gemini in here, blah, 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 all the way through. And you've got all that energy getting just pushed into this gigantic, what becomes a Santa size bag, or the Grinch on the mountain, this gigantic bag of energy. And that is really what Pisces is and represents as a sign. So then when you learn your house, and you're in the 12th house, and you're looking at the rulership of the house, what is the rulership of the 12th house? The 12th house right now is branded by a lot of astrologers as the house of nothingness. But because I do things through the lens of science, and I do apply specifically quantum physics theories and quantum mechanics theories to astrology as well, I want to talk about how this is really the house of everything. And that comes through what I was just saying of this is the culmination of the entire zodiac wheel, okay? So the way that you can combine both of these thoughts, because the house of nothingness, in the human brain, the word nothing has a little bit of a negative connotation to it. So then what we can have is unintended bias. So then when we're exploring 12th house energy, it can start to feel very negative, especially when there are other aspects of the rulerships that for 12th house, there is the rulership of isolation is here. Confinement, meaning like, even like back in the day when a woman was pregnant and she had to go in confinement, she was like by herself in a room before she had her baby, and she like wasn't allowed out. Like that's the term, like that term with confinement. It is the house of loss and grief and things like that. So because we have this phrase, house of nothingness, or this rulership surrounding nothingness, this is why I want to talk about the unified field. So the unified field is a quantum physics theory. You can also read about it as 0-point field and 0-point energy. So if you want to go into Google and literally type in, and you're going to learn about the unified field, 0-point energy, and 0-point field, people who work in like the philosophy of science, there's also neuroscientists. It's actually, there's a book that I read by arguably the most prominent famous neuroscientist in the world, Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's called Becoming Supernatural. And I really love the way that he defined in that book what the unified field even is from the perspective of consciousness and the brain and neuroscience, as well as like a concept as a place in order for people to start using it to generate a better, more fulfilling reality for themselves, and manifest and things of that nature. And what he wrote in that book as his definition for the unified field is that it is the place where all things and nothing exist simultaneously. So here we are getting both of those phrases of nothing and all things, which is everything, nothing and everything existing simultaneously. So there's duality here. It's that it's nothing and it's everything all at once simultaneously together. So I would like to reframe it as the house of the unified field and the house of everything, because that can kind of switch in the mind. Instead of getting lost in the 12th house, which is the common feelings, it'll help us reframe, and it'll help us form a new perspective surrounding the 12th house, that the reason that we even get lost at all is because when you think about being able to see everything and all things exist and all possibilities exist, that is very overwhelming. And that is really what Pisces and 12th house energy is and is the representation of. And so then also when people contain heavy either 12th house or Pisces placements, either or, you could have an Aries sun in the 12th house and you still will feel like you are drowning and overwhelmed a lot of the time, and especially emotionally once we get to the ruling element of the water, right? Of like, we always know that every water sign is an emotional sign. That what's really overwhelming is your energy being placed in the energy that is representative of everything, all things in existence. And also that things are so infinite, and that's so overwhelming because the human brain is not designed for that. The human brain is not designed to see everything. The human brain is not designed to know everything. And so those of us with 12th house placements or Pisces placements, then it can go into, a mental health crisis, emotional crises, existential crisis, spiritual crisis, like spiritual psychosis and things like that. So that's why I would like everybody to understand this as the house of everything. Over nothingness makes you feel like you might not be able to find the answer, find the solution, find the path, find the destination, find the journey, find anything at all, find yourself. So I just find that especially when I'm working with my clients that have heavy Pisces placements and or 12th house placements, that reframing in this way and understanding the house and the sign in this way helps them pick themselves up and be able to just do better, because also found in the rulership of this sign and the house is victimization, victimhood, and that is a spectrum of frequency all the way through to martyrdom. And so, of course, martyrdom is a victim that sacrificed themselves for a cause. So that's found here. That's found with both Pisces and the house rulership, really. And so that causes a lot of people that interact with 12th house energy in some way, whether that's through 12th house placements. There's also profection years in astrology in which, like, you can you can get on, I suggest Pinterest. And you can literally just search on Pinterest, like perfection chart, and it'll come up and it's a circle, and it'll show you what ages you are experiencing what house years. Okay. I'm actually, as I record this podcast, I am personally in a 12th house perfection year. And a professional astrologer friend of mine who told me happy birthday said, good luck with that 12th house perfection year. So we have a lot of negative connotation of the energy and the perspective viewpoint that we see surrounding the 12th house. And again, these unintended biases that take place in our mind, they can become blockages to understanding. So that's why I just really want to reframe heavily that even though that, yes, this is the house of nothingness, it's also the house of everything. And either of those things are overwhelming. But if you're trying to find your way in life, and if you're trying to discover, and also spiritual truth in particular, and that this is this house of the spiritual body, the intangible, the soul, the spiritual truth, and all of that, because also let's take us back to the whole axis, and let's remember that the 12th house is attached to the 6th house. So also that brings us to that this is a projective house. When we're talking about, the laws of physics being applied in astrology, understanding things through the lens of polarity, the law of polarity, but also from an electrical engineering sense, that each axis is a plus and a minus on a battery. And it's really about the directional flow of energy. And the plus is the projective energy. That means that it's flowing out and away from you. And then the minus is the receptive energy. And that means that it's flowing towards you. It's coming, and it's like you're attracting it and that type of thing. So the 6th house, back with Virgo, and when we learned that house, 6th house in Virgo, we learned that that was the receptive house. So that means that the 12th house here with Pisces is automatically the plus on the battery, and it's the projective house. And that is important when it comes to understanding Pisces energy and also 12th house energy, and also how and why it is so spiritually significant, important, useful as well. Because in order to go out and seek and find spiritual truth and information and go on the spiritual journey, you have to have that forward movement, right? And then also, this is what makes Pisces such a psychic sign. It is the sign and house of psychic abilities. There are multiple signs and houses that rule and represent psychic abilities in different ways. We also had Cancer with the moon and ruling intuition and things like that. But Pisces is like the psychic medium version of that, or the psychic oracle, or the representation of the oracle. Or if you're into tarot, it's like when you look at the cards of, the magician and the high priestess and those types of archetypes and what they represent. And also the Hierophant and all these spiritually represented symbols, right? I go straight to Pisces with all those types of archetypes. So, the high priestess, the oracle, the dreamer, the seer, the revealer, all of these archetypes that you find is found here in the Piscean and also the 12th house representations. Okay, but this is also taking me into the planetary rulerships of the Zodiac wheel and this section as well, because you also have two planetary rulerships, and it's Jupiter and Neptune. Okay. And when we're talking about the projectivity being required for finding the spiritual truth and finding the spiritual journey, it's also important to have this section of the zodiac being projective and ruling, being ruled by the planet of Jupiter in ancient astrology before we discovered our outer planets, before we discovered Neptune, before we invented our telescopes. Because the other sign of the zodiac that is ruling Jupiter, or the sign in the house, the other section of the zodiac is Sagittarius, and that was a receptive house. So that was a receptive sign and house. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion. That's the easiest way to view it. And that's why it's associated with abundance, because abundance isn't necessarily good or bad. It's just excess. It's just more. It's the word of more. So we kind of have, again, these are biases. We hear the word abundance, we think money. And it's more than that. It's an excess of anything. And we might want an excess of money. That might be a goal that we've all, under late stage capitalism, that we want to have. But when we are deconstructing from the human systems and constructs in order to understand astrology at the deeper level, Jupiter as a planet is simply just expansion, the energy of more, the energy of excess. And I find it to be very important that Jupiter as a planet is contained in both a receptive house and sign, as well as a projective house and sign, because we've got to have that polarity even within Jupiter in order for abundance and excess and more and expansion to really operate the way that it needs to operate to the best of its ability as a conceptual energy. So Jupiter coming into play is really important to remember as your foundational building block of your planetary rulership before you even start to explore the rulerships with Neptune, because it's like this energy has to go out and find a bunch of stuff in order to bring it back. Because when you apply the laws of physics, and for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, that means that whenever energy projects out and away from us, it automatically also has to snap back and come back to us. So when it comes to Pisces and also the 12th house, that is, it's information and energy, or it's energetic gathering is how I would describe it. It's like casting a net as wide and as far as it will go in order to collect a whole bunch of stuff, because remember that this is the house of everything, right? If we're in the unified field, there's all versions of us exist. There's all timelines exist. So then also from a manifesting perspective, this is the energy of how we manifest, and we are trying to receive our own expansion. If we're trying to manifest something, what that means is we don't currently have it, right? That we have a hole, we have a void that we're trying to fill, and like whatever that may be. And it's like, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's more friendships, maybe it's a job or a career, maybe it's money, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a house, maybe blah, 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 blah. Like we have all this stuff that it's like, well, if I do have it, it's not the version of it that I want, and I want a better version, I want to upgrade. So here you're hearing this language surrounding expansion, okay? You're expanding your horizons, you're expanding your life, you're expanding your reality, you're leveling up. Jupiter is the planet that we really look to as an energy in order to do those things. And so it has to project out and away from us in order to bring back in what it is we do not have that we are trying to get or achieve or whatever it is. Okay, so that's why the first ruling planet of Pisces, and so many people we don't talk about the ancient rulerships a lot of the time. And it's like we've developed modern astrology, and from the lens of astrology, it's so new that of course humans are just shiny. We like shiny things. We like new things. If it's new, we like it. If it's, kind of old, unless we're into nostalgia, we're just always more into the new, right? It's like whatever's new is catching our attention, and that's our vibe. So it's just common for mainstream pop astrologers, the astrologers that you would look up to and follow and have the highest amount of audience, to just kind of not really go over or discuss these ancient rulerships, but specifically Pisces, and the rulership of Jupiter just really gets left out. I don't know that I've necessarily met with a single client that didn't already just have astrology knowledge that is really good, that knew that when I talk about their Pisces placements or their 12th house placements, and I talk about the relationship that they need to have with Jupiter and working with Jupiter, they've never heard of that. They've never heard of that. They've never heard of working with Jupiter when it comes to Pisces or 12th house energy. And that's just because as we move forward through time and information just gets lost, and it's not what we're focused on. So what are we focused on the planetary rulership of Pisces and the 12th house? Neptune. it's kind of like one of our favorite planets, right? It's really pretty. It's that pretty blue color, very dreamy. Again, the color of my dress. So the modern rulership of Neptune, really, this is where you bring in the understanding of Pisces in the 12th house and this section of the zodiac, also ruling escapism, substances that can turn into substance abuse, but it doesn't have to, psychedelics, drinking alcohol, things like that, like the things that change the mind and consciousness, but also in particular have a tendency to bring the subconscious to the conscious mind. That's how we kind of view things like that, like psychedelics or, the jokes about that a drunk person always tells the truth, right? And it's that their subconscious that they normally would hide or not tell the truth to somebody comes out because the boundary went away because of the alcohol, or however we want to put it, right? So Neptune as a planet is a ruling planet of the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. It also rules like sleep and dreaming. So then we're getting taken back to that. We remember Pisces rules dreams and fantasy and delusions and everything. Neptune as a planet is very what is real and what is not real. Like, what do we believe versus what do we not believe? So it also is the planet that governs our literal beliefs. And so it's just like reality is malleable, right? Reality is interesting in that way. And that I'm sure we've all met people that are, it's funny because it's like, aren't we all living in reality? But then we meet people who are clearly not. That's Neptune. That's a great way to understand Neptune, is just the energy of the planet itself is just really, really governing the unconscious mind, our systems of beliefs as well, our belief, our faith, our knowing, what do we know, what do we not know, but also dream state, astral travel. Like if you are into that, astral traveling, Neptune is the planet of that. So it's very layered. It's very, very layered, the representations that you get through both of the planetary rulerships between Jupiter and Neptune, and how that can help you really understand this section of the zodiac between Pisces and the 12th house. So we are talking about our foundational building blocks and rulerships. Obviously, repetition is great for learning in the mind. So let's go back to the beginning. We start with the sign of the zodiac. What is that? It's Pisces. What does Pisces represent? Oh my gosh, fairy tales, fantasies, dreams, delusions, beliefs, spirituality, the spiritual truth, imagination, and then writing and like storytelling and all these things. You get all that energy, right? It's like you're literally just graduating from word to word to word when you look at that, just what Pisces represents as a sign. Then you stack your house rulership on that. What is the 12th house? We are understanding it as the house of everything, even though we also understand it as the house of nothingness. It is the house of the unified field for the quantum physics that we're applying to our spiritual understanding for manifestation purposes, as well as generating a better reality for ourselves. But it is also the house of spiritual truth. It is the house of loss, grief, confinement, isolation. And you can remember that isolation is attached to like spiritual truth and spiritual journey, because those that know, this is like an if you know, you know. The spiritual journey is incredibly isolating. And also there's a lot of deconstruction that happens to you that you are role playing a little bit in life. There's some realizations that happen with that. This is where we get those terms like ego death and stuff like that, where you have a bit of an identity crisis in your human identity when you start to really discover your spiritual truth and your spiritual identity, because maybe it doesn't match. Maybe it's things that scare you. Maybe it's things that you even want to run away from. This is where you see like shadow work coming to the forefront when it comes to the 12th house, and that house of like shadows and nothingness. And even though we get that in the 8th house too, it's just like way more potent in the 12th house. And so where you get like loss and grief and isolation when it comes to the spiritual journey, and knowing that that's represented in the 12th house, is this loss of self, even of, oh my gosh, I thought that I knew who I was, but now I feel like I don't anymore. And it's like this existential crisis energy and identity crisis energy. There's also imposter syndrome that is really prevalent in 12th house energy, because then when you like interact with what is real and what is not, am I delusional? Or is this fantasy, or is this reality? And that's really a lot of the energy that we're talking about, whether that's that Neptunian planetary rulership or Pisces or even the 12th house. We are arriving at an energy that you can get lost in grief with that. You can get isolation with that. You can feel very, very alone. You can feel very lost. You can feel like you're grieving your old self and stuff like that. So that's where these rulerships really come from. Even though when we hear the word grief, we're associating it more with like experiencing a death of a loved one or a pet, or a loss of a job, or like losing something that's like a little bit more tangible. Even though this is the section of the zodiac where that type of grief exists and is ruled and is explored, the root of it can be seen through these rulerships of belief and like reality versus delusion, what is real versus what isn't, and this energy of being able to see too much even is found here. So we went through stacking our stuff of this is like me channeling Pisces. I knew that I was going to at some point just like leave and dissociate and like be like, where am I? And I need to come back. If you haven't checked out other episodes, I don't explain it on every episode that I change my frequency, and I'm actually channeling all of these signs of the zodiac. And this is like not scripted, y'all, like in any way, shape, or form. I have like this little outline of like, I know that I want to talk about all these foundational building blocks. And then it's like, where is this going to go and how is it going to be and what's going to happen in each episode, because I am channeling in live time. I do all of these episodes pretty much in one take, unless I just like super flub and super mess up or something. So I was wondering if that was going to happen, and here we are. I just kind of left my body and came back. Hi. What were we talking about? I'm trying to remember. So we went over the zodiac. We were building our building blocks. We did the sign of the zodiac. Then we did house on top of it. We talked about that. We did Jupiter and Neptune. We did the planetary rulerships. And then, I talked about the polarity. I talked about that this is a projective house and why and how that goes. What do I do? Duh. Okay, element. So after you stack, you do zodiac sign and then house and then planetary rulership. After that, you're going to stack the element on top of that. So what is the element for Pisces? Blue dress, water, right? We mentioned it earlier. So all of the water signs water is always associated with emotion, okay? Like especially in astrology, but even just like outside of astrology, just spirituality, like working with elements and whatnot. It's the emotional element, okay? It's transformational no matter what. And you can lean on science for knowing that, because water is the only element that exists in a bunch of different physical forms, right? It's like we've got liquid water, we've got solid water when it freezes and becomes ice, and then we've got gaseous water, and also the clouds and whatnot that exist in the sky, like on my dress, from water evaporating and doing that. So you always know inherently that any sign of the zodiac that is a water sign is always going to be it's going to be associated with, and the energy is good for transformation, transmutation, because also, again, leaning on science, water is, it transmutes. It transmutes energy. It's a conductor. It's an amplifier. It literally can conduct electricity. Fun little tid, just because it popped in my brain and I saw it. I don't know if you've ever like chewed ice and literally in a dark, it has to be like, okay, it has to be in a pitch black room. But if you did this as a kid or anything and you saw sparks, because it's literally like what are they called? Piezoelectric thing. So a piezoelectric is like if you put a mechanical output, it produces electrical input, is what a piezoelectric is. And so because ice is crystalline and it's solid, piezoelectrics are crystals. It's like quartz. Quartz is a piezoelectric and things like that. So sorry, nerdy stuff from my job back in the engineering world in test and measurement. I was helping people use piezoelectric sensors for taking measurements and had to, explain all of that kind of stuff to people at times. So ice is like a similar thing of like piezoelectric, and it can spark in your mouth if you chew it fast enough in a dark room, and you can actually see it happen. So it's an amplifier, it's a conductor, transmutes, transformation, all of those things. But with Pisces, I literally get that image, I mentioned it before, of a net that is getting cast out like in the water, and also catching fish, which is actually going to take us to our symbol before I'm ready. So I'm probably going to repeat this again of like that. This is what makes Pisces so psychic, is this ruling element of water stacked on top of these planetary rulerships of Jupiter and expansion and more and excess and all of that, plus Neptune with belief and unconscious mind and subconscious mind and all of that. And then also still the 12th house and Pisces is like, you're just stacking all this stuff. And if you imagine a net in water, it goes with all of what I'm teaching in my analogies, but it's like the biggest possible net because it's projective. Remember, this is projective energy. It's a projective sign, projective house, and it catches way more fish with it. And that is Pisces energy and why Pisces is so psychic, and everything that they read is like the fish that's coming to them. And like all of those fish have a secret. They have a secret. They have a secret of life and existence and the meaning of life and the meaning of existence. And then you don't know what fish to trust. Well, that fish told me that this is the meaning of life, but that fish told me that this is the meaning of existence. And this fish told me that what's real? There you go. That's my analogy of Pisces, and when you're exploring the element of water. And why the Pisces sign and house and 12th house is just so psychic. It's found within the mechanical aspects of the energy, but also like within the element. And that's just where my mind takes me. Okay, so the next building block that we stack. The next building block that we stack after the element is always the mode. And the mode is a big one that it's like, okay, there's only 3 modes in astrology. And so whenever we learn that there's only 3 modes, but there's 12 signs, that's those parts of astrology that feel overwhelming when we're trying to learn. And that it's like, oh no, how am I going to memorize this? You memorize it by axis. Okay. So if you know that one sign and you're learning by axis the way that I'm trying to teach you guys, the whole axis is the same mode no matter what. And then also when you're building the astrology wheel by axis and you start off, the first axis is Aries and Libra, you're starting off as a cardinal axis and you move through the modes and they're all an equal and opposite reaction to each other. Because when we're learning astrology and applying the laws of physics to it in that way, it just helps everything make more sense. So cardinal energy is always the start of every new season. So it's Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, spring, fall equinox, summer, and winter solstice, period. Okay? That's what tropical astrology is based in. It's based in the changing of the seasons. It's why you hear on the earth, Tropic of Cancer, tilt of the axis, north hemisphere, south hemisphere, blah, blah, blah. That's how we make our seasons. Okay? That is related. That is related to all of this. So cardinal energy functions as starter energy, great at starting new projects, very, very motivated, highly motivated when you have cardinal placements, as people with placements, or if you have placements in cardinal houses at all. So then what is the equal and opposite reaction of movement, motivation, good at starting things is the stoppage of motion. So then that becomes fixed. So the next axis that you will always build after a cardinal axis is always a fixed axis, which you saw as your second axis being Taurus and Scorpio is your first fixed axis. And then your second fixed axis is Leo and Aquarius, which is the last axis before this one. And so that's how we know that this is a mutable axis, because the equal and opposite reaction to the stoppage of motion, and if you want to personify the energy and call it stubborn, then becomes go with the flow. Mutable energy is adaptability, people, go with the flow. It changes based on the surrounding context of any given energy that surrounds it. So when it comes to Pisces and how that manifests, go back to this is the house of everything. This energy is able to see everything, experience everything, and then really it just becomes more about like the choice of what that energy wants to become and represent. So it's chameleon energy in a lot of ways. So people with prominent Pisces placements and or 12th house placements, right? They can exhibit chameleon energy. They can even show you like different, like some people might accuse them of not knowing who they are and not having an identity, but that whether that's true or not, it also could be like a strength that they are just taking in whatever is the context of the energy that they're surrounded by. And then based on that, they are presenting their energy the way that they feel it needs to present based on the energy that surrounds them. And that's really what mutable energy is and does. Like it's very, very go with the flow. They're going to be more easygoing and things like that. So this is a mutable axis. It's the last axis. And then you don't have anything to remember after that. So it's not as hard to learn as you think as it may be. So what do we learn after the mode? It's the symbol. So I always have the symbol be last because astrology is a symbolic language. If you even like look at a birth chart, like there's no words on it. It's literally just the symbols and everything. So that's even why like people are like, I don't know how to read a birth chart and it's hard. So it's like, if you look at in your emoji keyboard and you type in Pisces, what does that look like? And it's like, it's not a perfect circle and there's two of them. And it's like, how am I describing this? Especially if you're not watching the video, because it's like I'm drawing it with my hands. Anyway, it's two fish. It's two fish. And that is the symbol of Pisces. And if you see like really pretty art done, I've seen really pretty Pisces art be like two koi fish in a pond, like the really big ones, the really big koi fish, and they're like swimming in a circle around each other. And also they have like those like very, very flowy tails and fins, right? Very, very, very artistic, very pretty. That's Pisces, okay? So if we forgot every other building block that we just stacked in order that was taking us into all of its own energy, and we got all of these like definitions of spectrum of frequency, all of it's associated, we're having all of our pattern recognition, but then we like sleep and oops, I woke up and I forgot everything that I tried to learn yesterday, right? Happens. So go to just the symbol and the imagery that evokes, okay? So if we have two fish. And also, like, if you ever see on the back of somebody's car, it's a Christian symbol of the fish. And so it's like, it loops around and it makes an X for their fin, or not their fins, their tail at the end. So this is also where you get that, for astrologers, Jesus was a Pisces. And that is that representation of martyrdom, victimhood, but also spiritual, highly spiritually knowledgeable, somebody who like sacrificed themselves for a spiritual cause even. That's in his symbol of the fish and the fisherman. And literally when you see that on the back of somebody's car, that technically is the symbol for Pisces. And astrology came first, y'all. Astrology came first. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. And I'm going to say that your story of Jesus even being born and the three wise men who trekked across the world in order to find him based on a star that they saw in the sky, they were astrologers, y'all. I love you all to death, you know, like everybody who's confused about this, I love you so much, but you are confused. And that's why they're called that. And so we were calling them the wise men. They're astrologers. There used to be no difference between the word astrology and astronomy. We more invented the word astronomy after, especially telescopes come into play, and just we separated things, and we also separated like science and spirituality in a way that way back when it like was not and whatnot. And so, you know, here I am bridging the gap on that and all that. But Anyway, I'm getting off the rails because that's what Pisces does. That's what Pisces does. We go off the rails. So this symbol of the fish can take you right down that road, okay? It can take you to spirituality, spiritual messages, spiritual truth, spiritual journey. It can take you to victimhood, victimization, all the way through to martyrdom and sacrifice in that sense. And you're finding all of that like in the rulerships of what do you believe? Like this is the house of what do you believe and what's true and what's not and what's real and what's fake. Okay. And all you did was look at the symbol of the fish and you went there because also we have a bunch of people that are just like, no, that's fake. Religion is fake. I don't believe any of that. I don't believe your religion and I don't believe you. And then we have the other people who are way into it and they believe it so much that they kill people over it. Right. You know? So again, it's in the symbolic imagery. You can find it. It's right there. It's right in front of your face. It's really easy to look at and graduate to that. But you really want to learn through all of these building blocks. Always start with your sign. Put the house on top of it. Put the planetary rulership or rulerships, if there's multiple like we have today, on top of that. Put the element on top of that. And then put the mode on top of that. And that literally gives you all of your answers as to not just what this energy represents from a definition standpoint through the archetypes and things such as that, but it also gives you information as to how the energy functions and performs. And it's even mechanical of, like I'm saying, of like casting that net out into the water as far as it will go, the biggest possible net, collecting the most amount of fish that have all these secrets that they're going to whisper to you. And that's why Pisces is so psychic. It's like, if it was a receptive house, would Pisces be as psychic as they are? We don't know because that's not how this was built. I don't know. So yeah, basically, oh, I know. This is me. Like every time I come to a new section, I leave my body and come back. Anyway, Pisces. So I want to always talk about mainstream and pop astrology and the way that, it's just difficult when things get popular and mainstreamed. We always lose a lot of nuance. We lose a lot of detail. We lose a lot of the layers. It's just the way that it is. I'm not knocking it, but it's just what happens. But what happened with mainstream astrology is we as human beings have a very binary thinking pattern that we need to get out of. And either we view things as strengths or weaknesses and only that, or we view things as good and bad and only that. It's very black and white. And so I always encourage people, I want to discuss in like understanding these signs and houses and understanding the zodiac wheel in general and astrology through the lens of duality, and really stressing that what is duality? Duality is that nothing is positive or negative. Everything just is. And that whatever perspective we see, it's always a human assignment of perspective that is taking place in the brain based on information that we have chosen to perceive or find. And if we take it upon ourselves to seek and find additional information, whatever we view as a strength, we can flip that over on its head and find how it's actually a weakness. And whatever we view as a weakness, we can flip that on its head and figure out how it's a strength. Okay. So I kind of brought this up in the beginning with that phrase, Delulu is the Salulu, and Pisces, prominent Pisces placements. Oh, my poor Pisces moons out there as well. I would love to talk about this from the lens of how these people are accused of being delusional. And okay, maybe they are, and maybe we have had those experiences, and like, I'm not going to say that that's not real and it doesn't exist. But because this energy is projective, and it's exactly what I am like putting out there, right? Of that net with the fish that's coming in, and those fish are telling us secrets. And it's very, very psychic. And it's like their energy is constantly flowing out and away from them, and the laws of physics are enacting that is causing so much to come back at them. This is why understanding it from the axial standpoint, the whole axis is so important, because even these people that have prominent Pisces placements or 12th house placements, that we are accusing them of being delusional, and we are telling them that they're crazy, and we're solely labeling that as a weakness. It is actually a great strength, but they have to learn discernment, obviously, right? It's maybe they're lacking discernment, are the ones that we're putting in that box of the stereotype of you're crazy, you're delusional, I can't be friends with you, I can't be around you, what is wrong with you, you're nuts. On the other end of the axis is Virgo and the 6th house, ruling attention to detail, analyzation, and problem solving and structure and organization, all these things. And you can also turn that into the word discernment. So it exists for people who have these prominent Pisces placements. What do I mean by prominent? Interplanetary placement, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, but also North Node and South Node are very prominent placements in the chart, as well as your ascendant, like your rising sign, okay? So if you have any of that in Pisces, or you also have any planetary placements in the 12th house, okay? That's what I mean by prominent Pisces or 12th house placements. If y'all can go ground in the other end of the axis within Virgo energy, earth energy, see, earth plane, grounding, right? Moving from emotion, water, psychic, astral, intangible, spiritual, not in the body. See, I keep leaving my body, right? And I keep grounding. So that's what I'm doing as I record this episode. I take a moment and I'm like, whoop, come back to earth, come back into the earth plane, come back into the body, come back into here. And in order to even say that you want to go all the way with this, say that you want to be the high priestess, you want to be the oracle, you want to be the medium, you want to do all this stuff. How do you become accurate? That's discernment. And it's the ability to be able to see everything, but then analyze it. That's found on the other end of the axis out here with Virgo in the 6th house. So it is their greatest strength. It is their superpower. Pisces energy, 12th house placements, psychic AF. But it can really screw you up. It can really screw you up when then you don't trust it, if you don't trust yourself. So then you also have to have this very deep understanding of yourself and knowing of yourself. You have to be locked in on your spiritual identity and your spiritual truth, and you know your soul, and you know everything about it, and you know everything about your own energy, but you're also grounded and rooted in your body, and you're grounded and rooted on the earth plane in that earth element with Virgo, and you're grounded and rooted in your ability to analyze and discern what is needed and what is not, when you have this ability of your energy to bask in everything, because remember, this is the house and sign of the unified field. So that's my soapbox of these people are so powerful. They truly are. They are so powerful, but it's difficult to be able to grasp that type of ability and power and the way the factory default settings, because what I'm describing when I'm describing all of these signs of the zodiac and houses and rulerships and everything, I like to call it factory default settings. So it's like your factory default setting is having a lot of projective energy if you have these Pisces placements or 12th house placements. So the factory default settings are what they are, but then we have the ability to tweak and customize. And it's like your iOS updates, your operating system updates come through your human experience, your learned experience, your spiritual journey, this, that, and the third, and everything that's going on. And then as you grow and you develop your discernment, and you're also getting out of the imposter syndrome, because I want to reiterate that this sign and house and all of the energy that we're talking about with Pisces in the 12th house is super duper prone to imposter syndrome and feeling like you don't know what's real even within your own dang self. And do I belong in that energy? Is that really me or is it not? And am I fakey? Like all this stuff. Get out of that. Just exist in the belief and knowing and faith. And that's when we really excel in this energy, and it just becomes, quite frankly, the most powerful sign of the zodiac, because how can it not be? It's the highest frequency sign. It's the culmination of the entire dang thing. It's the house of everything. It's the unified field. It's, Pisces, we love you, but we also love to hate you. And I'm telling you that. So yeah, like that's my soapbox today on it, of just like, you really truly can grasp all of these things. And actually that takes me into a really good segue that I'm going to have. It's like we want to call it a secret episode, but we want people to get it, right? It's not a secret episode, but it is a special episode in which, I'm going to be talking about a few things. It's things that I channel when it comes to astrology, different types of planetary rulerships that may have been information that was lost, as well as kind of like cheat sheet and cheat codes of how, if you have like these placements, and they go out of whack and they're not working for you, and how to notice that. And like, that's going to be in there. Just so y'all know, that's going to be in there for Pisces. You know what? If y'all have prominent Pisces placements, let's get together. Let's get together. Let's have sessions. Be in my year program. I want to do psychic development with y'all. And it's just like, we will get you there of, you're not delusional and you're not crazy. And what people have maybe accused you of is just the energy going into detriment and not being grounded, especially in that other end of the axis within that Virgo energy, and finding that discernment and harnessing it and using it. Yeah. It's just like it's so much. It's so powerful. And astrology is the tool and the guide and the cheat code and the cheat sheet that we really have for especially the powerful stuff, the powerful energy, the hard to handle, the difficult, burdensome, heavy energy to take on. There's ways, and it's based in polarity. It's based in the laws of physics. It's based in grounding and traveling from one end of the energy to the next. And you can do those things. But also, if you're listening to these episodes out of order, which is totally possible, don't know how you found me, don't know how you stumbled across me, make sure that you listen to the rest of the episodes, because this is an encapsulation of the 12 signs of the Zodiac. I would suggest listening to them by axis, not necessarily going from Aries first to then Taurus to then Gemini, blah, 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 like in that order. I did this by axis. I recorded them by axis. I channeled them by axis. I did them all in one day. So I beg of you, please listen to them by axis, because you will learn better. So check out the other episodes. And if you are looking to connect with me, if you're looking to book a session or get into my year program, contact me, talk to me in any way. You can find me on my website and also on any social media platform. It's Brie Rhiannon. So it's BrieRhiannon.com. I'm Brie Rhiannon on Facebook, Brie Rhiannon on Threads, Brie Rhiannon on Instagram. I quit TikTok, but if you guys want a vault of videos, I was on there for, I don't know, a little over a year. It's quite a bit of content, but I won't do TikTok anymore. So you can find me on all those platforms. You can connect with me there. I do have a Facebook group as well. If you guys are seeking community, it's called Lunar Revolution. So if you just type that into the search bar, that's actually the title of my work in progress first book that I am writing, that it applies the laws of physics, quantum mechanics, all my sciencey, diancy thingies, to manifesting with the moon, releasing with the moon. Releasing is actually the biggest part of manifesting. You got to get holes in order to fill them, y'all. And that equal and opposite reaction through the Zodiac and astrology applied, because this moon is moving through each sign of the Zodiac every couple days. And yeah, so that book will exist at some point in time. I'm like several chapters into it. It is an ongoing process, but it is the name of my Facebook group. So I post my science nerdy content in there. If you guys are into that kind of stuff, I post full-blown studies. I post full-blown studies if you want to read them with me and get deep in the trenches of all of this. What else is there? Is there anything else? I'm not sure. I am leaving my body again. Pisces is taking me away. I'm going into the clouds. Bye. I think that's it. I think it's like telling you all how to connect with me, how to book with me, website, social media platforms, Facebook group. I think that's it. Anyway, I hope you all have been enjoying all of this. I hope that it's helpful. I hope that also, help me out. If you liked this stuff, share it. Share it. tell people that this helped you learn astrology if it did. Obviously this is super rudimentary, beginner, everything. You're not going to listen to these episodes and then go become a professional astrologer immediately after that. It's not about that, but this is about breaking this down to make this be less overwhelming and daunting, I guess. It is like my primary goal with this is that here's my Pisces delusions. or dreams or fantasies or fairy tales or however you want to put it. I dream of a world where everybody knows astrology in the way that they can use it to navigate their own world, their own life, and their own reality. They can use it as a tool. They can use it as a tool in multiple ways. They can use it as a tool to further understand themselves at the deepest possible level. But then in addition to that, they can use it as a tool to generate the most fulfilling reality and life of their dreams, which is a very Pisces thing for me to say. And also, I would love to see that we don't put astrologers up on a pedestal that it's like no one else can learn what they know and that they're these like all-knowing, all-seeing gurus and that this is too hard. Like that this is too hard for anybody to learn. And then when you learn it that way first, you can very easily graduate to understanding transits. And I always say that humans are just reacting to cosmic energy and that those are the transits that as the moon changes frequency, that frequency is based on the sign of the zodiac and it is being showered down upon us and we are feeling that and we are made out of water. We are made out of mostly water. So then there's also the other planets. There's gravitational aspects to this stuff. And it's literally just frequency that is coming to us and it's hitting our personal frequency, which is why I say that your birth chart can be your personal factory default settings and decoding yourself and understanding yourself. So it's an interaction of the internal with the external. And that astrology is the code. It's to decode it. It's the cheat sheet and it's a tool. And that's all it is. And we don't need to be so like gatekeepy over this. We don't. We need to stop gatekeeping all of it. I want to stop all of that. All of this needs to become accessible, easy to learn, easy to digest. Okay. So if you feel that this podcast did that for you, since this is the last episode of it, do me a solid and tell the world about it. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we all go down this road and we deconstruct from astrology being so overwhelming and daunting and this system of knowledge that is oh so hard that I could never, ever, ever learn. And I just wish that I could. Unified field theory, that it's not that you wish you could, it's that you will. And you are, and you currently are because you listen to this podcast and I am so proud of you. Anyway, that's it. If this is the first episode you're finding, go listen to the other ones and find me everywhere. And if we have a session together, I'm already excited. Thanks, y'all. I'll see you on the flip side.